Good morning, everyone. My name is Colleen Russell Rollins, and I am the Interim Director of Education at the Peel District School Board. It is my pleasure to welcome you here on behalf of the Peel District School Board for this announcement. Thank you very much, Vice Principal Ann Schickerel, for hosting us today at the beautiful Jean Augustine Secondary School. Before we get started, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. I'm pleased to have my board colleagues in attendance, including David Green, Trustee Wards 1 and 5 in Brampton, where we are located, Matt McCutcheon, Superintendent of Education, and again, Ann Schickerel, Vice Principal here at Jean Augustine Secondary School. I'm delighted to welcome the Honorable Jill Dunlop, Associate Minister of Children and Women's Issues, to Jean Augustine Secondary School, and to extend a warm welcome to the Honorable Ministers Lecce and Jones, as well as MPP Sandu and Kusendova, and to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedules to join us here today. The Minister's Office and the Peel District School Board share an important goal and vision. That goal is to create safe and supportive learning environments in which each and every student can thrive. At the Peel Board, building that kind of school environment for our students will always be our goal. The Peel Board looks forward to working collaboratively with the Minister's Office in the months and years ahead. On behalf of the board, I thank you for being here today. Please join me in welcoming MPP Sandu to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amarjot Sandu, and I'm the Member of Provincial Parliament from the Great Riding of Brampton West. It is a super exciting morning welcoming Minister Dunlop, Minister Jones, and Minister Lecce to the Great Riding of Brampton West, and I'm proud to be their voice in the Provincial Parliament. This morning, we have all come together for a very important announcement on a big issue prevailing in society, which defies human rights in every possible ways. We're talking about the issue of human trafficking. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar industry and is termed as a modern-day slavery, which involves the exploitation of persons for commercial sex or forced labor. What makes it even worse is the fact that the causes and the consequences of this crime are not well known to wider audiences. This makes children even more vulnerable to becoming victims of sex trafficking. Raising awareness and educating the public about the causes, consequences, and signs of trafficking in persons are important tools to prevent and detect this heinous crime. In particular, education and awareness raising play an important role in preventing this phenomenon. I'm glad that our government is working on a comprehensive action plan to combat human trafficking and child sexual exploitation. Now I'll turn over to Minister Dunlop for this wonderful announcement. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Amarjot, and hello and welcome everyone. And thank you, Colleen, for being here today. And congratulations on your role, and you will provide great leadership moving forward. I want to thank my colleagues, MPP Amarjot Sandu, Solicitor General Jones, and Minister Lecce for being here today. And I want to thank everyone else for attending this important announcement. I've said it before, but I think it is worth repeating. We should not need to have a strategy or need to raise awareness about a crime so unspeakable. Child and youth sexual exploitation should not need a plan to stop. It should never have started. And the fight against it is one we cannot afford to lose. The health of our communities and the lives of millions of young people are at stake. More than 70% of known human trafficking victims identified by police are under the age of 25. Young women and girls are particularly vulnerable, especially those from Indigenous communities. And the average age of recruitment into sex trafficking is just 13 years old. And these statistics are only the tip of the iceberg. That's why our government is taking strong action to combat human trafficking and end child sexual exploitation. Earlier this year, we released a new 5-year, $307 million strategy focused on raising awareness, protecting victims and intervening early, supporting survivors, and holding offenders accountable. We shared this plan in March, and then COVID-19 hit. Over the past few months, while much of the world ground to a halt during this pandemic, human trafficking carried on, continuing to put young victims' lives in danger. It's an enemy that often goes unseen, though it happens all around us. Despite what many think, it does happen here in our communities and in our backyards. This is why we have made raising awareness a key commitment in our new strategy. Shedding light on human trafficking is our first line of defense in preventing this crime and protecting children and youth. Today, we're taking another step in our awareness efforts with the release of 2 new educational resources. These new tools are designed to actively engage youth in discussions about human trafficking and provide culturally relevant resources for Indigenous communities. The first is called Speak Out, Stop Sex Trafficking, an Indigenous-focused anti-human trafficking campaign designed by and for Indigenous people. It provides information about human trafficking and sexual exploitation, how to recognize it, why Indigenous people are particularly vulnerable to being targeted, and where to go for help. It's a source of information about human trafficking and sexual exploitation for Indigenous youth, as well as leaders and caregivers in Indigenous communities, to help them raise awareness and provide support. The campaign was developed through a collaborative approach, including Indigenous organizations and communities, anti-human trafficking service providers, Indigenous youth, survivors of human trafficking, and artists. And it responds directly to calls for justice of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls to develop and implement awareness and education programs for Indigenous children and youth on the issue of sexual exploitation. The second resource is aptly named The Trap. It's an interactive web-based app designed to teach young people what human trafficking is and equip them with the skills to stay safe. With the support of a facilitator, youth respond to virtual scenarios to see firsthand how trafficking can happen so they know the signs and dangers and how to get help. This tool offers a new, innovative way to show youth how traffickers operate so we can stop this crime before it starts. I also want to acknowledge and thank everyone who has been involved in making these tools and resources. We spoke to those on the front line, survivors, and many others to ensure that we were as accurate as possible. We know that we cannot fight this crime alone and appreciate the collaborative efforts of those in the sector. This includes educators, frontline workers, those in the Indigenous community, police officers, and of course, survivors who have been so strong as they share their stories and experiences to help shape the strategy. We are proud to reaffirm our government's commitment to fighting human trafficking and protecting young people by giving them the knowledge and skills to stay safe. And I'll now pass it over to my colleague and co-lead of our anti-human trafficking strategy, Solicitor General Jones.
Thank you very much, Minister Dunlop. Students are returning to class to begin a school year unlike any other. Families across our province continue to show the resilience, the compassion, and the spirit of working together that has helped Ontario move through COVID-19 and into a gradual recovery. Today's announcement is a reminder of how we need to continue working together in every sector of our province and across our government to ensure we do everything we can to keep our children safe. Today, we are speaking about the criminal networks that prey on our youth and seek to sexually exploit them for profit. I have the honor to work with Ontario's police services on a daily basis, and I can tell you that threats that exist for our young people are real and present in every community across Ontario. It is so important to raise awareness about child sexual exploitation and sound the alarm on human trafficking among children and youth. Parents and students should know that we are doing everything we can to bring human trafficking out of the shadows and go after the traffickers. That is why we have collaborated on bringing forward new user-friendly tools to help fight back and protect our children and young people. Speak Out, Stop Sex Trafficking, and The Trap, a human trafficking digital education tool, are innovative tools to help educate young people about human trafficking. These new tools are vital components of Ontario's comprehensive plan to combat human trafficking, bring traffickers to justice, and end this heinous crime. As co-lead responsible for developing our government's anti-human trafficking strategy, along with Minister Dunlop, I applaud the thoughtful work that went into creating these additional resources. Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing crimes in the world, and much of this growth is being fueled by internet and digital technology. We can and will use the internet and digital technology to learn and stop human trafficking. Building education awareness around how human trafficking happens will help protect our children and youth from predatory activities. I look forward to discussing more of this plan soon with families, educators, and our police. Thank you. It's now my honor to introduce our Minister of Education, Stephen Lecce.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be with you all. I want to just first off recognize our principal for welcoming us. Thank you very much, and for your welcome today. Our trustee Green, who's with us, likewise the superintendent, as well as our interim director, who's been providing incredible leadership. We are very grateful for your work and for your commitment. I also want to thank Amarjot for welcoming us here to Brampton. He has been a fierce advocate, a passionate advocate for the next generation, and we're really grateful for his leadership and also the work that is being done by the Peel District School Board today. Our government is working to lead in this important issue of dealing and confronting human trafficking. Human trafficking has no place in our world, let alone right here in our province. It is a horrific crime that preys upon our children, our youth, and our most vulnerable. It exploits them for the benefit of criminals. It is disgusting and it is wrong. As you know, schools are the hallmark of our communities. They must be safe. They must be, and that is our commitment to you. And part of that commitment included updating the elementary health and physical education curriculum last fall, where students across the province now learn about the dangers of human trafficking and how to keep themselves and their peers safe. These updates have been made as positioning Ontario as a leader in teaching students about online safety and consent. As children, youth, and adults spend more time on the internet, learning about safe online behaviors is essential. And that's why it's woven throughout the updated curriculum. Age-appropriate learning starts in grade 1, and the information presented creates a foundation for future instruction as students mature. These skills are vital for students to be able to identify and to respond to inappropriate behavior and victimization. So in addition to updating the elementary health and physical education curriculum, the Ministry of Education also partners with external organizations that have expertise in combating sexual violence and human trafficking. We work with organizations like the White Ribbon to develop an online educator resource that focuses on prevention of exploitation of children and youth. Another partner is Roots of Empathy, which offers an evidence-based classroom program designed to foster social and emotional awareness in children so that they can be better able to protect themselves from the dangers of trafficking. This impressive program also provides support to Indigenous students and communities right across the province. When we partner with organizations such as those and working with our school boards to ensure the delivery of programs, we together stand up against all forms of human trafficking. And by working together and more closely with other ministries, including under the leadership of the Solicitor General and Minister Dunlop, we're able to reach out and to save the lives of more children. Today's announcement, the digital tool that we're introducing, will give young people valuable opportunities to use their knowledge about human trafficking in simulated real-life situations. It's an excellent example of how our government is committed to ensuring the safety of our children in partnership with our police and our schools. Regardless of the new challenges we all face during COVID-19, parents should be assured that our government will continue to do everything we can to protect our students inside and outside of the classroom. Our students of this province deserve no less. Thank you so much.
We will now be taking questions by the mic. If everyone could line up, and please remember that it is one question and one follow-up. Thank you.
Good morning, Minister Lecce. It's Lena from CP24, and I've got a question that has to do with education.
Okay.
We're very, very close to the start of the school year, and many parents in this province say they're very anxious about your back-to-school plan. What do you say to parents and educators who feel as if you had months to get this plan together, and here we are a week before school starts and boards are scrambling?
Well, I think first off, an acknowledgement that the pandemic has really impacted governments around the world and populations, parents, all of us having to work at lightning speed to respond to the emerging challenge. What I can tell parents is that since the very beginning, when we were informed of the risk in March of COVID-19 to our young people and to the broader community spread, we took action. In that day, in that call with Dr. Williams, we closed schools. We were decisive because we knew that early intervention would matter. It's the very basis for why earlier on in the spring we worked with school boards, encouraging them to improve their HVAC systems, working with school boards on cohorting, on strengthening our testing processes, and ultimately consulting with the sector to make sure that the investments are in place to enable schools to restart. I know many provinces around the country, some of them have staggered their starts, delayed their starts in this province. We're able to next week start to reopen schools safely with a plan that has been fully supported and endorsed by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. When you benchmark Ontario against all other provinces, all of whom face the same challenges of getting, in Ontario's case, 2 million kids in school, with a parallel program of online learning, concurrent in-class learning. We have a unique advantage in Ontario. We're providing those choices to parents. I recognize there always will be some challenges, but the spirit to overcome it is to stick together and to work together. And what we have demonstrated over the past weeks, and I have to give credit to school boards who have been working so hard, is to achieve the objective of ensuring learning remains sound, the integrity of learning is strong, that we increase the amount of in-class minutes with their teacher, do everything we can to preserve that opportunity for children while keeping it safe. And I think we have done so. And we're going to continue to build upon our plan. We lead an investment. We've added another $340 million that the partnership with the federal government announced just 2 weeks ago. Each of those investments are going to make a difference. And I think, as I said, by working together, we'll get these kids in class in September safely.
We're talking about a really serious issue, human trafficking this morning. Another big issue for kids heading back to schools could be bullying. What is your message to children, specifically of Asian descent, who could be looking at harassment and bullying as they head back to the classes? What's your message to their parents who might be fearful about sending their kids back to school for that reason?
I think respect is something that, in our schools, in our homes, in our faith communities, we all really seek to embolden in the lives of our young people. And I think particularly for those youngsters that are bullied for their differences, I think of a variety of young people that are facing that challenge today, Asian students among others. It is incumbent on all of us, for parents starting at home, educators in the classroom, and us as a society, to really embrace the diversity of our province as a strength and to really counter it in every way we can. In our province, we have put in place significant anti-bullying and anti-cyberbullying investments in training for educators to arm them to be the best they can. But my message to the province, to the students, is one of respect, inclusion. If we can appreciate that in this province, in this country, we are a nation of many peoples from around the world who have come here with one aim, which is to succeed and to give back. That's a spirit that I think is going to make a difference, and it's really going to help counter the great difficulty and the trauma that often is inflicted as a consequence of bullying in the province.
Good morning, Minister. Oliver Walters, CBC News.
Hi there.
As you mentioned, other provinces have opened their schools already, and for example, in Quebec, there have already been some positive cases of COVID-19. Are you concerned that the same thing could happen here in Ontario when schools open, and what would you do to prevent the same thing from happening here?
I think we recognize that when you're putting hundreds of thousands or millions of students in schools in congregate setting, there always will be some challenge. The question is, how do we prevent it? one of the preventative steps we're taking in Ontario is ensuring that we have a very strong testing protocol, the strongest in Canada. We have surveillance testing of high school students. We have uniquely positioned Ontario as having public health nurses within our schools, 625 no less, that we're hiring in real time. We have put money in place and investments in ventilation because we know from the emerging evidence airflow and air quality matters. An additional $50 million just announced. And of course, we are maintaining cohorts, making sure that these children, the indirect, direct contact is under 100, which in BC, for example, that number is 120. We've taken a very cautious, very prudent approach to limiting interaction, to staggering classes, to ensuring we have more cleaning staff, 1,300 more cleaning staff being hired. In addition, with the federal monies we negotiated with them, we're now putting aside additional money, additional $100 million for school boards to use for health and safety priorities, which can include, of course, hiring more custodians, more cleaning staff. So we are doing everything humanly possible, from cleaning to testing to nursing to cohorting to staggering schools, to a variety of other actions, layers of prevention, just ultimately to mitigate that challenge. But if that challenge, when those types of challenges arise within schools, we have a strong outbreak management protocol that is now being led by Dr. Heyer, who is dedicated to ensuring that whenever a challenge arises, the resources and the public health assets immediately are deployed to ensure that the children and the staff of our schools are safe. And that's something that has been worked on for many weeks. And again, it's been supported and endorsed by the Chief Medical Officer of Health.
Great, thank you, Minister. And just my follow-up, are these procedures also in place for after-school programs?
Yeah, with respect to before and after school programs, we're asking all of the names to be listed and centralized to make sure from contact management, contact tracing, that remains, the integrity of those systems remain in place. We've also said that there could be a maximum of 2 cohorts. And the after school programs, before school programs, they have to respect the 100 students indirect, direct contact. And by doing so, by school boards doing so, it limits the risk ultimately and ensures we have lists and ultimately just to make sure that the cohorts are being maintained. And by doing so, the parents have the ability to use an after-school program. For many parents, this is a way of life. It's how they're able to work the full complement of the day. And we just want to make it work in a way that is safe. And that's why we've come up with a protocol that has 2 cohorts that can coexist, if you will, with very strict health and safety protocols in place for those parents and for those kids.
Seeing no additional questions, that now concludes our announcement. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.